I work at a spa in Reykjavik. We have a strict silence policy in the relaxation rooms. Signs everywhere, multiple languages, big red icons of a finger over lip. An American couple walked in, saw the signs, nodded at me, and immediately started a full-volume conversation about their rental car problems. When I approached and whispered that this was a silence zone, the husband looked genuinely confused. He said silence meant no phone calls. Talking was fine because it's natural human communication. I explained that silence meant no talking at all. He asked what people were supposed to do then. I said relax and quiet. He stared at me like I'd suggested we all stop breathing. His wife asked if this was a Nordic thing or a spa thing. I said both. She asked how long people usually stay silent. I said as long as they're in the room. He laughed and said that's impossible. Nobody can just sit in silence with strangers. That's awkward. I pointed to the 12 other people sitting in complete peaceful silence. He whispered that they probably didn't speak English, so the rule didn't apply to them. They left after 4 minutes. Said the silence was too loud. At a train station in Switzerland, I watched an American woman try to have a phone conversation in the quiet car. A local man politely pointed to the quiet car symbol. She said her call was important. He suggested she move to a regular car. She said she'd paid for this seat and had a right to use her phone. 37 minutes later, she was still talking. And that was just this month. I'm a librarian at the University of Helsinki. Our main study hall has a no-talking policy that's been in place since 1842. The signs are carved into wood panels. An American exchange student sat up at a table and within 10 minutes was having a full FaceTime call with her mom. When I approached, she immediately said she was wearing headphones so nobody could hear the other person. I explained that we could all hear her half of the conversation. She said she was speaking quietly. I demonstrated that 12 people had looked up from their work. She said in American libraries, quiet sections just mean you can't shout. Normal conversation is fine. I showed her the specific rule posted on the wall in English. She read it and said this seemed extreme. How were students supposed to do group projects? I said we have group study rooms on the 3rd floor. She asked why anyone would choose to study in total silence. I explained that some people concentrate better without noise. She said humans aren't wired for silence. We're social creatures. She'd read a study about it. I asked her to continue this conversation outside. She gathered her things and said she'd probably just study at a coffee shop where the rules made sense. She came back 20 minutes later and asked if whispering was allowed. I said no. She asked about typing. I said typing was fine. She asked what the difference was. I didn't have time to explain acoustic physics. I manage a Buddhist temple in Chiang Mai that offers silent retreat. An American couple signed up for our weekend program. The rules were explicit. No speaking from Friday evening until Sunday afternoon. They could write notes if absolutely necessary, but verbal communication was forbidden. We gathered Friday at 6 p.m. for the opening ceremony. I explained the silence would begin after the welcome talk. The American husband raised his hand and asked if they could talk in their room. I said no talking anywhere on the temple grounds. His wife asked about emergencies. I said we have a bell system for emergencies. She asked what qualified as an emergency. I listed medical situations. She asked if feeling anxious counted. I said she could write a note to a staff member. He asked if they could whisper. I said no. He asked if humming was allowed. I said we preferred silence to include musical sounds. She asked about laughing. I said natural reactions were fine, but sustained conversation through laughter wasn't the spirit of the practice. He said this was stricter than he expected. In America, silent retreats usually meant limited talking, like only talking during meals or something. I told him our brochure specified complete silence. He said he'd read the brochure but assumed it was like an exaggeration for effect. Marketing language. I asked if they wanted to continue. They said yes. Silence began at 7 p.m. At 7:14 p.m., I heard them having a full conversation about whether the mosquito net was properly tucked in. At breakfast Saturday, they were discussing the food. By Saturday evening, I pulled them aside with a written note asking them to observe the silence rule. The husband wrote back, "We are being quiet. We're basically whispering. That's silent." They left Sunday morning. On their way out, the wife said the retreat was nice but way too strict. I work at a hot spring resort in Japan. We have traditional bathing areas with strict etiquette rules. One rule: no loud talking. The baths are for relaxation and quiet reflection. There are signs in 8 languages. An American family came in, and within minutes, the teenage daughter was video calling her friend, phone propped on the edge of the bath, having a full conversation about drama at school. I approached and explained no phones in the bathing area and no loud conversations. The mother said her daughter wasn't being loud. She was using her normal voice. I said in Japanese bathing culture, we speak in low tones or not at all. The mother said they were on vacation and paid good money for this experience. Her daughter had a right to relax her way. I explained this was a cultural practice, not a hotel policy we invented. She said when they went to hot springs in Colorado, everyone talked normally. This was a hot spring. Same concept. I tried to explain that Japanese onsen culture has centuries of etiquette traditions. She cut me off and said she respected that, but they were American customers, and in America, the customer's comfort comes first. Her daughter should be able to relax and talk to her friend if that's what helps her unwind. I noticed the other guests had moved to the far end of the bath. The father asked if there was a talking section they could use. I said no, the entire facility observes quiet customs. He suggested we should consider adding one because it would be good for business. They stayed another 15 minutes. The daughter never stopped talking. I'm a tour guide in Norway for the Northern Lights. Part of the experience is standing in silence in the dark to watch the aurora. I always explain this before we drive out. The silence helps with the meditative experience and also prevents disrupting other tour groups in the area. An American man kept providing running commentary the entire time. Not whispers, full volume observations. "Oh, there's a green one. Now it's moving. Is it supposed to move like that? Honey, look at that part. Do you see it? What causes that color? I think I read something about solar particles." Other tourists kept shushing him. He said he paid for this tour, and if he wanted to talk about what he was seeing, that was his right. I pulled him aside and asked him to please observe silence. He said he wasn't being disruptive. He was just enthusiastically engaged with the experience. That's a good thing. I should be happy tourists are excited. I explained that part of experiencing the Northern Lights in Nordic culture is quiet observation. He said that sounded made up. The Northern Lights are a natural phenomenon, not a cultural thing. They exist everywhere in the Arctic. I said yes, but the cultural practice of how we view them differs. He said in America, if you pay for an experience, you get to experience it your way. That's freedom. I asked him to please respect the other guests. He said if they wanted silence, they could go stand somewhere else. We were in the middle of nowhere. There was plenty of space. He talked for another 20 minutes until the aurora faded. On the drive back, he told me I should consider being more flexible with customers. I manage a nature reserve in New Zealand with a dawn bird watching walk. The entire point is listening to native birds at sunrise. I give a briefing. No talking, no phone sounds, move slowly and quietly. An American couple joined us. Within 5 minutes, they were having a conversation about breakfast plans. I signaled for quiet. They whispered for 30 seconds, then resumed normal talking. I approached and reminded them this was a silent observation activity. The husband said they were talking about the birds. They were engaged. I said even bird-related conversation disrupts the birds and other guests. His wife said in the nature walks they do in Montana, everyone talks about what they're seeing. That's part of the educational experience. I explained this walk was about listening, not discussing. She said that seemed counterintuitive. How were people supposed to learn if they couldn't ask questions? I said we have a Q&A session afterward. He said that didn't make sense. By then, they'd forget their questions. Real learning happens in the moment. I asked them to please try to stay quiet for the remaining 30 minutes. They agreed. 7 minutes later, they were comparing the birds to birds they'd seen in California. At the end, the husband said he had feedback. The silence rule limited the experience. People should be able to engage naturally. His wife added that Americans are used to interactive experiences. Silent observation felt passive and outdated. I work at a vineyard in Tuscany. We offer a sunset wine tasting on our terrace. The setting is designed for quiet appreciation. The view, the wine, the fading light. We ask guests to speak softly and minimize disruption. An American group of 6 sat down and immediately started what can only be described as a party. Loud laughter, shouting across the table, one man FaceTiming his friend to show him the view. I approached and asked them to lower their voices. They apologized and got quieter for approximately 90 seconds. Then the volume crept back up. Other guests started leaving early. I approached again and explained this was meant to be a peaceful experience. One of the American women said they were just having fun. Wasn't that the point of vacation? I said yes, but in a way that doesn't disrupt others. She said everyone there was drinking and socializing. They weren't doing anything different. I pointed out that the other tables were speaking in conversational tones. Her husband said maybe those people were just boring. Americans know how to have a good time. We don't sit in silence sipping wine like we're at a funeral. I explained this was an intentionally quiet, contemplative experience. He said that should have been clearer in the booking description. If they'd wanted a quiet wine tasting, they would have gone to a library. This was a vineyard. Vineyards are fun. I offered to move them to a different section. They said no, they liked this spot. The noise level didn't change. When they left, one of them said the wine was good but the atmosphere was too stuffy. I coordinate silent meditation sessions at a wellness center in Copenhagen. We offer a free 1-hour evening session every Thursday. The format is simple. Guided meditation for 10 minutes, then 50 minutes of silent sitting. We dim the lights, light candles, and ask participants to turn off phones and remain in silence until the closing bell. An American woman attended for the first time. The guided portion went fine. The moment silence began, she started shifting constantly, sighing loudly, clearing her throat. At the 15-minute mark, she raised her hand. I ignored it, assuming she'd realized this was silent time. She waved her hand more insistently. "You October." She whispered loudly, "Is something supposed to happen?" I put my finger to my lips. She whispered, "I don't understand what we're doing." I pointed to the silence symbol on the wall. She whispered, "But I have a question." I gestured toward the door, indicating we could talk outside. She stayed seated and kept whispering. "How long is this part? Is this normal? Does everyone just sit here?" Other participants were opening their eyes. I had to verbally break the silence to tell her we'd talk after the session. She said okay but continued fidgeting and sighing. At the 30-minute mark, she stood up and walked out, her shoes echoing on the wooden floor. She didn't return. After the session, I found her in the lobby. She said meditation wasn't what she expected. She'd thought there would be more guidance, more talking about techniques, more instruction. Sitting in silence with no direction felt wrong. I explained that silence is the practice. She said that seemed lazy. A teacher should teach. I told her many meditation traditions emphasize silence as the core method. She said in America, meditation classes have constant guidance. Music, talking, instruction. This felt like being abandoned. I suggested this style might not be for her. She agreed. She said she'd look for a more American-style meditation class. Something less quiet. The thing about silence is that it's not the absence of noise. It's the presence of space. Space to think, to hear, to exist without the constant need to fill every moment with sound. Somewhere right now, an American is explaining to a confused Buddhist monk that meditation should have background music.